Hey class, just taking the time to go over week 2 readings and assignments. You only have one required reading that everybody will be reading this week. It is this article here, Narrative Therapy Group Work for Chemically Dependent Clients with HIV/AIDS. You will then be choosing 2 of these readings to read. Remember, if you choose the Morgan reading, you will be looking at all of these chapters. This is, as it indicates in the title, an easy to read introduction, so it can give you a good basis and understanding of narrative theory. The biggest thing to remember with narrative theory is that essentially it's helpful for clients in telling their story, and then eventually reauthoring their story in a more hopeful, healthy kind of framework. I know that much of you have learned in terms of object relations theory, we tend to internalize different things that happen within our lives and the ways that we're treated by different people. The goal of narrative theory is to focus on externalizing problems. So we would externalize an issue that might have been internalized within your life and create and essentially look at it as a problem outside of yourself and externalize it so that you can kind of tackle that problem with a more problem-solving approach. An example of this might be an issue, such as facing racism. So if people have used racist kind of language towards you and been critical of you or anything of that nature, it might be internalized that I am bad because of this, or I'm bad because I have this color skin, or I have this ethnicity. Externalizing the problem would be, we're not tackling this as an issue within myself, but we are tackling this as a more systemic issue. The issue is now racism. Racism is a problem within society. So you take it a little bit more outside of yourself, and that just is giving one example, but there are a variety of different ways that you might externalize a problem. And then with this, you can work on reauthoring your story and creating new, healthier narratives. So moving down, you will choose one of these readings here. This is looking more at Gestalt therapy, experiential therapy, so just kind of giving you a little bit of a intro into those types of approaches. And then we have some videos. You will be required to watch the film Precious. There are a variety of different ways that you can view the video. Hopefully one of these options, such as Vudu, Amazon, YouTube, will be useful for you. If you do have a problem finding the movie, let me know and we can maybe try to problem solve. I am hoping that you can watch the movie in its entirety because one of your discussions will be based off of this. Then we do have a podcast, the Social Work Podcast on Gestalt therapy. And then we have approximately 10 minutes that you'll be watching from this video, Psychotherapy with an Unmotivated Patient. Then we have another psychotherapy.net video, approximately 40 minutes, so narrative therapy with children. And then we have here narrative therapy. So hopefully this is helpful in that you can really view narrative theory in progress. I know that this is kind of heavy on the videos this week. Hopefully that's something that you enjoy. I mean, I tend to be more of a visual learner myself, so hopefully you find it helpful. We do also have some resources this week for social work in non-clinical settings. So you can view some of these here. This is helpful for people, I know that a lot of people in their introduction to social work have not necessarily worked in primarily clinical settings. So you might be in a hospital or a nonprofit, and you might be doing a variety of different types of work. These are some resources that might help you know how you can integrate some aspects of theory in more short-term kind of ways. So you're not carrying out the traditional therapeutic model, but you might be able to use some pieces of it or some more short-term treatment options. So feel free to view some of these. I think these could be very helpful for a lot of you, especially those of you that might be working obviously more short term with people, hospital settings, etc. Just reviewing, your first discussion for this week is going to be on Gestalt techniques. So you'll see you had the choice of 2 different readings that were based on more experiential kind of approaches, and then the podcast especially is one of those that might describe Gestalt techniques. But for this discussion, I want you to find YouTube videos on Gestalt experiment techniques. So examples would be empty chair, reenactments, role play, something that you might see in here, maybe aspects of psychodrama approaches. For your initial post, I want you to identify one technique that you might use in your clinical work and why. Identify any challenges you may encounter, and provide a link to at least one video that highlights that technique. So you're going to be doing a search on YouTube for, to view the ways that other therapists might be carrying these out. And then I would like you to follow up with at least one classmate who doesn't have any other responses and just highlight what you've learned from their post. So as I had mentioned, one of your discussions this week was going to be regarding the film Precious. So please be sure to view this movie prior to completion of the discussion. You will see here it's notated that this movie does contain quite a bit of traumatic material. So please be sure to exercise self-care before and after viewing this film. There are many aspects of this that could potentially be triggering. If you think that this might be excessively triggering for you, please reach out to me. I can potentially give you an alternative to view in order to complete this discussion, but reach out to me sooner rather than later. So for your initial post, you're going to be thinking in terms of narrative theory. So in terms of the movie Precious, what narratives do you think are informing her current functioning? So again, what has she internalized, and what does she view about her life based on her experiences? What narratives has she created? Has she essentially been following within her life? And then you're going to be identifying how she developed those narratives. So what experiences have contributed to the narrative that she has created for herself? And then lastly, how might you implement techniques from narrative therapy to provide treatment to her? So an example of this would be, how might you guide her towards externalizing or reauthoring her narrative? Please make sure to cite and reference material from the readings for your post, because you will be referencing specific techniques from narrative theory. Then I would like you to respond to at least one classmate and just give some constructive feedback, maybe some things that you've learned or maybe some things that you might add to their learning. Lastly, I wanted to review the personal narrative reflection assignment, which is due on Sunday. This is going to be a 2 to 3 page length paper, and I am hoping that you are able to describe some narratives or a narrative or multiple narratives that you've adopted or internalized throughout your life, and how that's influenced your identity as a social worker, your goals, and your values. So you're going to be discussing probably some pretty personal types of things here. So again, practice self-care, and if you do have any concerns regarding writing this paper, reach out to me. You are going to be looking at how you've developed these narratives personally and how they're affecting you both personally and professionally. Then, you're going to describe how they developed, what people and experiences have contributed to those narratives, and how you've made meaning from them. You're going to discuss whether or not you find this narrative to be constructive or challenging to your function as a social worker. And you can describe it from both ways. There are plenty of narratives that can be both challenging and constructive in different ways. So make sure to look at it with a lot of critical thinking and really identify both sides of that. And then discuss some ideas for how to deal with your narrative in order to be more constructive. So how will you plan as a social worker to address some of those ways that the narrative that you have for your life has been challenging to your functioning as a social worker. So examples of this might be anything from your own therapy to supervision to just general learning about yourself, maybe externalizing some things within your life that would hopefully be done within your personal therapy as well. But just some ideas of how you might address some of those challenges. As usual, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me, and I hope you all have a great week.